Hello and welcome to Mastering in the Box. Do you master music but don't know what some of the jargon terms mean? Are you confused by the many acronyms used in modern mastering and not sure what LUFS, LKFS or LU mean or how to apply them? If so, then this video is for you as we discuss the basics of loudness standards in mastering. Hello and welcome to Mastering in the Box. I'm your host Smudge, and in this week's video we continue the Mastering Loudness Simplified series by discussing the loudness standards with specific reference to LUFS, LKFS and LU. Just to recap, in the past two videos we have discussed how we can measure loudness using a loudness meter, and I'll specifically show you how to do this using two free plugins. We also discussed the concept of headroom and why this matters to set us up for success when it comes to mastering our tracks. If you haven't had a chance to watch those videos, then I'll leave the links in the description box below, and if this content is something that you'd like to know more about, then please don't forget to hit the red subscribe button below. This week we're going to discuss loudness standards. Let's start by setting the scene with a bit of the history, and to do this we must acknowledge the loudness war. For those who are new to the world of music production, then you may not be aware what the loudness war was, but in essence it was a trend, or movement if you will, of increasing the loudness of recorded music. The aim being to try and make the songs louder than other artists with a view that consumers would perceive the songs to be better due to the increased volume, hence the belief that loudness is better. The downside to this though is that many of the methods used to increase the volume of the tracks, including extreme EQ and compression, could sacrifice the quality of the recordings in favour of making the music louder. However, it wasn't only the quality of the music that could suffer, as it was also believed to have affected the quality of the listening experience. Well, you might ask how? Well, if you think about a music compilation or playlist of 10 plus songs, and each of those songs has a different loudness level, it doesn't make for a very cohesive and comfortable listening experience, as you could be frequently reaching for the volume button for every song. Then think about radio broadcasting, with not only the variance of loudness between songs, but also competition between competing radio stations, with some trying to play songs louder than others. But this wasn't only restricted to radio, with television broadcasting channels featuring programs with different loudness levels and even variances between the programs and commercials. So what was the solution? Well, in the US, the CarMax was passed on the 29th of September 2010 and introduced in 2012. This barred the audio of commercials being louder than the TV programs, and is explained in the ATSC's Recommended Practice A85 document. In this document, it requires that loudness be measured using the ITU-R BS 1770 algorithm. In the EU in 2010, the European Broadcasting Union also introduced EBU R128, which employed the international standard for measuring audio loudness as stated in the ITU RBS 1770. Well, that's all well and good, I hear you say, but what does this actually mean in practice? Well, put simply, the way loudness is measured was changed from peak normalisation to loudness normalisation. Peak normalisation is concerned with adjusting the loudness of a recording based on the highest signal level present, or peak. Loudness normalisation adjusts the loudness based on perceived loudness. If you watched last week's video, we mentioned the concept of perceived loudness, where we discussed that the sound at peak can happen so quickly that as humans we cannot perceive the true volume, as we perceive loudness better over time rather than at peak level. In addition, there were also recommendations and guidelines on what the perceived loudness levels should be for different mediums, and the introduction of new loudness meters rather than the sole use of peak meters or VU meters for measuring loudness. The introduction of a new loudness meter could also factor in changes and differences in the frequency spectrum, because as humans we perceive sound differently at different frequency levels. This is not in the capability of a peak or VU meter. This is where the acronyms LUFS, LKFS and LU were born. So what are LUFS and LKFS? Well, LUFS is the acronym for loudness units relative to full scale, and LKFS is the acronym for loudness K-weighted relative to full scale. LUFS is the loudness measurement designated by the EBU R128 loudness standard, whereas LKFS is the loudness measurement designated in ITU RBS 1770. So, we have two measures from two standards. What is the difference? Absolutely nothing. LUFS and LKFS both measure in absolute scale, both distinguish between frequency ranges, and one LUFS and one LKFS equal 1 dB. They are merely two scales that measure and reflect the same amount of loudness. The two loudness standards do marginally vary when it comes to target levels, but for fear of confusing the matter further, we won't go into this in this particular video. Also, in the interest of simplicity, I will refer to both LUFS and LKFS as just LUFS moving forward, as it's the more widely known acronym. So what is short-term, momentary and long-term LUFS? So we've discussed the measurement of loudness that is to be adopted moving forward, and we've also mentioned that we perceive loudness better over time. So there's just one way of measuring LUFS, right? No. When it comes to measuring loudness in music, we know that sound changes in volume and frequency response as the song moves, not only through the concepts of dynamic range, but also with changes in the frequency spectrum, i.e. different instruments create different sounds. So what we can do is look at the perceived loudness on a short-term, momentary or long-term, often referred to as integrated or programmed loudness, viewpoints. Short-term loudness is a measure usually taken from the average reading of 3-second blocks with readings every second. Momentary loudness is the measure of loudness over a 400 millisecond time period. Long-term or integrated LUFS is the average measure of the entire song. Each measure is useful for differing reasons and for different mediums. The most typical measure, but not exclusive when it comes to music mastering, is the integrated LUFS measure, as this is the more widely used measure by music streaming platforms. So what is LU? Well, LU is the acronym for loudness unit. Simply put, LU is the unit used for differences between loudness levels. In other words, if song A has a loudness level of -14 LUFS and song B has a loudness level of -12 LUFS, then song A is 2 LU quieter. It is a term used to describe the differences between loudness levels and is commonly applied when referring to a target loudness measure. There is one more term that we need to discuss when it comes to loudness standards, and that is true peak. So what is true peak? In a typical digital setup, the meters used in a digital audio workstation are known as sample peak meters. Now, sample peak meters are great at measuring loudness in the digital domain, but when it comes to hearing audio, the signal has to be converted from a digital signal to an analog signal, usually by a digital to analog converter found in an audio interface, which is then played back through monitor speakers or headphones. This conversion process from digital to analog, however, creates a challenge, as the conversion process isn't perfect in that the digital to analog converters try to approximate the analog signal but can't replicate it perfectly. So the conversion to analog typically identifies an increase in the loudness of the signal when converted from digital. So, for example, we know the digital ceiling is 0 dB, and if a signal attempts to go above 0 dB, the signal clips and we get digital clipping, which is nasty. If I use a sample peak meter and master the track so that a sample peak level is no higher than 0 dB, then as far as we are concerned, no clipping has occurred. But a sample peak meter does not take into account the full conversion to analog. So if this conversion identifies an increase in volume of 1 decibel or 1 LU, when converted to analog, then the signal is clipping as it's trying to go above the digital ceiling by 1 LU, and digital clipping will occur. This is where we need to consider the true peak level, which in simple terms is the peak level after analog conversion, which gives us the true peak reading, which will help us to minimise the risk of digital clipping. This is where the use of a good loudness meter is worth its weight in gold, as it will measure not only the loudness in LUFS, short-term, momentary and integrated, but will also help us identify the true peak level, and we can adjust how we process the signal accordingly. Don't forget to check out my video which shows you 2 absolutely free loudness meters, which I will link in the description below. So, in conclusion and to summarise, we had the loudness wars, which was the preference for loudness over quality, which had a negative effect on the listening experience. Legislation was passed to end the loudness war. In the US, there was the CALM Act, with the EBU adopting the international standards from ITU RBS 1770, with the introduction of EBU R128 in Europe. New loudness measures were introduced, being LUFS, LKFS and LU, which focused on perceived loudness rather than peak levels. LUFS is measured in short-term, momentary and integrated readings, and true peak level is there to aid with minimising the risk of digital clipping. There's certainly lots to take in, but I can already hear the question, so how do I apply this to digital mastering? And that is indeed a great question. For this, we need to look at the delivery method and how we need to consider the loudness standards when it comes to releasing music. Whilst there are strict protocols for broadcast, television and gaming, the recommendations do differ for music releases, especially when it comes to digital releases, with differing platforms following slightly different measures. This concerns the topic of loudness normalisation, which I will be covering in next week's video, where I will discuss the recommended loudness levels each platform provides, along with my take on how we can apply the loudness standards to our digital masters, with some visual examples for ease of reference. I hope you find this video useful, but please let me know in the comments below what you think about the content. Is there a particular part around the loudness standards that you'd like covered in greater depth, or anything that you would like clarified? If so, then please let me know. If you like the video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and if you want to know all the ins and outs of digital mastering, then don't forget to subscribe by clicking the red subscribe button below. All that leaves for me to say is I hope you keep safe and well, and I will see you in the next video.